The reality is, if it's in your imagination, you can do it. You just have to lean in and go through all the crap that's telling you why you cannot. That is where the true opportunity lies. Is that like when things start getting tough, that's when the game actually starts.
Welcome to the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth-building strategies. Discover how to fast-track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you once again for listening to another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I'm your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about this really cool thing. This thing about, I firmly believe your environment creates your opportunity. And so, as always, when I'm talking to you, my fellow contrarian, it's about the uniqueness that happens in life. Like, let me give you an example. Prior to having children, I did not believe that birth order was an actual thing. Like, I just figured it was kind of one of those make-believe things. But as I teach you to be scientist, and like you can have a hypothesis or a belief, as we associate it as, but you want to test it and see what happens to be there. Then I became a parent, and I'm a parent of 4. And so through that experience, I do believe that there is some truth based upon birth order, because I myself am number 3 of 4. But I grew up as number 2 of 3 because my older brother is 16 years older than me. So like he was an adult doing adult things, while in the traditional order of things, I was the middle child. And then what you find out over time is that the middle child has a tactical advantage. The advantage that they have is that while they're not the oldest, who is the one being yelled at and trying to create the path and go through things, they're also not the youngest, because parents realize at a moment that like the youngest, like, man, this is it. This is finite. This is where things are being. So they may have a little bit more leniency towards the youngest. But the middle child gets kind of put on an island. And so that middle child is the one who like just sees things differently, because if they were the youngest, it may have only been for a short period of time, depending on the dynamics of the family. And so in my own case, it was one of those that I always saw the world differently. I got to see somebody go down a particular path ahead of me, and I chose to opt out of that equation. And so this path has led me down a place where I naturally see things outside the box. So I ended up getting into a world based upon my environment of seeing non-linear inside of a word that is linear. And as I've explained in previous episodes about the gray man, I don't see things as black and white. All I see is gray. And so that gray has built up the opportunity to where I'm at the place where I'm at today, where I get to go ahead and see, and I don't have the traditional path. I don't have the standard textbook of the way things are going to be, but here's the reality. I'm not a standard textbook kind of person anyway. And I'm guessing neither are you, because there's no way as a contrarian you would be here. You as well, your environment has shaped you to start seeing things that are outside of the mold, that act a little bit differently. You see 1 + 1 = 11, because there's infinite possibilities of things to be there. And if we really lean in to the law of abundance, there's infinite possibilities of how we want to be, of how things can show up. Like, it's such an amazing time to live in a world where all of this centralized information used to be stuck in certain neighborhoods, in certain environments, in certain schools, in certain secret societies. They got to find this out. But in today's day and age, in the age of podcasting, that information is becoming everywhere, right? So how fun can that possibly be, that there is unlimited opportunities to be able to live that thing that sits inside of your imagination? Because to me, the imagination is just a preview of what life will bring to you should you choose to lean into who you need to become to make it occur. So as we look at that space, we also can look at certain geographies around the world create certain opportunities. So, prime example, I was born in New York, raised in New Jersey. My mother worked in law firms all throughout the city and on Wall Street. So when she brought me to different parties, or she brought me to the law firm, I used to just go walk around and start talking to people and start asking questions. Because what it did was I got to witness and experience that they're no different than me. Yeah, their skin color may be different, but their capabilities is no different. Because if I'm in this room, I'm meant to be here. And so what insecurity wants to tell you is that naturally, insecurity is going to tell you all of the things because you live and operate inside of a linear world. I can't do that because I don't have this. I can't do that because I have this. The reality is, if it's in your imagination, you can do it. You just have to lean in and go through all the crap that's telling you why you cannot. That is where the true opportunity lies. Is that like when things start getting tough, that's when the game actually starts. We used to have this saying in football, like, until you have that first hit and you realize, oh, that sounded loud, sound to be able to be there, but guess what? I'm going to get up and the game just started. That's when real things happen. Adversity creates opportunity. So your environment creates opportunity. Growing up in New Jersey and being able to be there, I got to see all the people who worked in the city. And they were moms and dads and people I was exposed to. I started as an engineer because I was insanely curious to be able to go through things. So through my high school years, I would spend my Saturdays going to a program that was particularly meant to excel brown people in engineering. I don't know about you, but I didn't really want to be there. But my mama saw something that I didn't. And so every Saturday, I got to think about my mom. Well, she naturally woke up early anyway, but she's like, oh, cool, we're going to go this and we're going to spend 4 hours at the local community college to go do stuff. I went to a vocational school to learn about networking my junior and senior year. And here's the fun part. All that did was teach me how to think differently. It was the mold that was nature had given to me, but I had to nurture it. There's this delicate balance. Once you understand what your nature is, then you can nurture those elements. As a person who has a brain that is wired like ADHD, that's fine. I just look at it like I got to know the good and the bad of it, which is also why I schedule my day a very particular way. A lot of quick, intense sessions to be able to be there and lots of non-structured time because I need to chase a rabbit. That's how the brain is wired. So I understand the sport of the operating system that's inside of me. And I'm going to consistently learn it over time. But here's the other fun part. As an adult, I ended up in Washington, D.C. area, which is actually the home of finance. So that home of finance, which I didn't even know. I was just like, I got interested. And this is where I ended up. And this is where I met my wife. And this is where we're raising our kids. And I've tried to leave numerous times. And it just comes right back. Because I trust that God has a plan. So I'm always the kind of person that's willing to shoot my shot. If I miss, I miss. Who cares? If I don't take a shot, I'm still at 0 anyway. If I take a shot and I miss, I'm still at 0. So the only thing I have to do is to gain something. Maybe I get 1 point. Maybe it's 2 points. But I'm willing every day to take the shot. Because what will happen is over the span of a year, I'm going to have 365 attempts, while the person that is sitting there still sitting on the bench thinking about their shot is taking 0. And then it's just going to compound. 700, like so, 1,000, 65. Like, it's just going to keep going and going and going and going and going. And that is based upon environment. I was exposed to that speed and that pace. Nowhere else in the country operates at the speed of DC and New York. Chicago, yeah, other cities can move at a speed, but that environment helped me create that. Let's think about around the globe. Certain cities have different cultures. And if you're never exposed to it, you'll never be able to identify and understand what it's capable. Those different cultures and those different levels of diversity that I learned when I was in the United States Army helped me understand a different paradigm. because of my natural curiosity and my natural willingness to learn and be exposed to different things. This is why I share with you as a fellow contrarian. Embrace your contrarianship. I don't know what the hell that means, but I'm going to keep saying it, right? Contrarian shit. Not contrarian shit. Ship, right? There's a reason why you're wired the way you're wired. Every day I walk into different meetings with different individuals and I can see, yeah, that's who that person is. And I can also see the person that isn't sure of who they are. And they're trying to still fit in and be able to do things like a cute little kid. But the ones who just know who they are and they're like, damn it, this is my quirk. This is where I'm good at. This is where I'm not good at. Don't book any meetings before 11 o'clock. I'm of no use to you unless it's an emergency and the house is burning down. Because I get to do my best thinking late at night. Cool, man. You do you. You know the ins and outs. And I travel. I like going like, hey, cool. I like to stretch. Be able to do things. Have a travel day because I don't know how my body's going to react. So I leave a day early. Get a little space. Hold things down. That is the fun of life. You get to decide what's going. So how does all this tie back to, like we talk about wealth building strategies? I believe in emotional wealth. It's a massive contributor to physical wealth. Because remember, money is the end of the equation. You have inputs that create outputs. But the variable in the equation is your emotion. Because you can hear a great idea and a great strategy, but if you're in a place of despair or hopelessness, you're not going to be able to get the kind of outcome you want because you're playing scared. You're playing not to lose. Here's what ends up happening. Like you'll understand if you just take this little piece of information. Emotion is the variable in the equation. So we're going to look at the input side of the equation, right? So you're going to have yourself plus your emotion determines the outcome of a situation. So the emotion is the variable. How do we work on our emotions and things to be able to be there? You first have to be aware of them. If you can be made aware of what you're actually feeling and what you're actually experiencing, and you take time to audit those moments, you'll start seeing a trend. Because I firmly believe people are patterns and patterns are people. That's all we are. Just a mixture of beliefs that created certain emotional patterns that create certain outcomes. But you get used to it. So like I was talking to somebody, they're like, man, I thrive under pressure. That's when I do. I was like, yeah, that's because that's when you get a large dump of adrenaline is when things are on the line. And if your brain is wired where it's missing that level of adrenaline, it's going to trigger the things that's going to create the adrenaline you need to make that happen. But just know that, just like with anything in life, there's always balance. If you just completely run on nothing but adrenaline all the time, your nervous system's going to be shot. You're probably going to get sick in different moments. You're going to develop other illnesses. Your organs may not function at their full capability because you're running with, like you're driving with race fuel. And did you know after every single like drag strip goes down the track, they got to tear the motor apart and put in new internals. But yet you still want to go ahead and drive from there. That's cool. You get to figure out like what works for you. You've got certain hours of sleep, certain hours of movement, certain way you're eating. That's all for you to be able to decide on your journey. My job as the leader of this tribe is to make sure I educate you on the areas of life where you can get the gotchas. Because if you're driving from that space, I'm here to tell you, it's gonna be a little bumpy ride. But some of us take ownership into that and be like, I like bumpy rides and be able to do things. Cool story, bro. It's gonna create certain results, but it's sustainable, which is why I say your environment creates your opportunity. So for me and myself, I know that I love being in a city. But I also know how frenetic the energy of a city is. So like I go for short trips, short levels of exposure, but I live in the mountains. I live here on land where I can go outside and it can just be calm and serene. Even Jesus himself would retreat to the mountains when his faith was low. Look it up. So I've understood that stuff about myself, and that environment is going to help create that because the neighborhoods you live in creates opportunity. The clubs you join create opportunity. Those are inputs. But if you are wallowing in a place where your emotions aren't dialed in, yeah, you're not going to get the outcomes you expect. All you're going to do is grow that feeling. And so naturally, as humans, we try to think of different ways we can solve our own problems. So if I'm sad, I just need to be happy. Well, all that's going to create is toxic positivity because your brain ain't going to believe that shit. You're going to be there being like, oh, I feel so great. I'm so happy. I need to be grateful because everybody says gratitude is the attitude. Gratitude creates outcomes. But you can't feel it because you're trying to fake it. So just lean into that. Don't judge anger or rage or like they're just emotions. They run their course. They do what they do. I'm not going to overjudge somebody and be like, damn, that person is so angry. Cool. Maybe that's the operating system they're operating from because they just don't know a better way. I also don't know what chapter and what part of your book of life you're on, because age doesn't determine chapter. People can go ahead and be running in the same first phase of life their entire life. But emotional maturity is the true way to unlock the level of wealth, relationships, and health you choose to have throughout your course of life. So just to land the plane, what I want you to do is I want you to take time to actually audit how you're feeling. Do a check-in. Set a timer every 2 hours. Just check in, see how you're feeling. What you'll realize is that life isn't as complex as our brain leads us to believe it is. So as always, appreciate you guys. So grateful for this opportunity to share this message with you today. You can find me across all social media platforms at Sylvania Harrod. I do love DMs. I do love messages. I do love outreach because this is a two-way communication platform, and I'm here to serve as always. So stay grateful, my friends, and until the next episode.